Hey there, my friends. I am so glad that you are back. Today we are talking all about how to decide one word for your year. So we are wrapping up 2019 and we are getting ready for experiencing all that God has for us in 2020. And I really want you to go into the next year ready to see what God is going to do for you in the next 12 months. So let's talk a little bit about setting goals and a little bit about one word for your year, what that really even means. So it is really great to set goals. If you have been here for very long, you know that I love setting goals. I love meeting goals, but we need to remember that a man's heart plans his way, but the Lord determines his steps. That is a psalm. And what that means to me is that your goal setting should start with the Lord. It should start by praying it out, by asking the Lord what He wants for you. We can set all the goals that we want. We can make all the plans that we want, but it's really the Lord that determines our steps. And so, of course, we want to be part of His will. We want to be part of everything that He's doing. And so in order to do that, we really have to pray before we set any kind of goals and ask the Lord to really have His way in us in the following year. Whenever we allow the Lord to set the tone for our year, we're going to find ourselves in a completely different place than maybe if we had planned out the year for ourselves. Make sure that you expect the unexpected. I have some friends of mine that they had 6 kids and they had already kind of determined that they were done having kids, and the Lord called them and spoke to them and had them have another child. And I just actually got to see them a couple of weeks ago and saw the little baby boy, and it just he really rounds out the entire family. And it's really beautiful to see that whenever we allow God to set the tone for our days and our lives, He starts to show us all these areas where we can change and we can become more like Him. And it might mean something as huge as having another child, or it might mean something as small as talking to someone that you see every day on the street. Most of you know that my word for 2019 was uncomfortable, and it definitely was a year for that. There were several weeks in the year, not every day, not every week, but there were several weeks in my year when I was just taking it one day at a time. I don't like the phrase, God will give you more than you can handle, because it's based off a verse that's talking about temptation, not struggles. And the truth is that God gives us more than we can handle all the time. Because if we could handle everything that life threw at us, that He gives to us, then why would we need Him? He gives us more than we can handle all the time so that we have to lean on Him. And that is definitely what I had to do this year. My life was completely turned upside down and it was very uncomfortable. I had to do so many things that I was uncomfortable with. But I realized that if I wanted to be in the middle of God's will, that's where I wanted to be. So more than any goal that I wanted to create, more than any achievement that I wanted to have, I wanted to be in the middle of God's will for my life. And so whenever my husband and I were praying about our 2019 year, most of you know our story, that we became foster parents, and fostering would have never been on my goal setting list if I hadn't allowed God to be part of my decision-making process and part of this process of being in His will. So that is not something I would have put on a bucket list. That's not something that I would have added to my busy life, but it's something that now that we're in it, we know that it was God's will for us to expand our family, and we knew the route that He wanted us to take was through foster care placements. And so that is something that my uncomfortable, that definitely really encompassed my life, but it wasn't just that. There were so many other things that we started doing that were getting us out of our comfort zone and making us uncomfortable, and it was definitely a good year for our family. And it's interesting to see how God blesses you whenever you are moving forward in His will, because I know this year my husband and I have a local, like a brick and mortar business, and it's one of its best years, and we know that it's because we were in God's favor, because we were doing what God had us do. We were obeying, we were doing what we were called to do by Him, and He blessed us for that. So remember, whenever you're setting goals, expect the unexpected and be ready to change any plans that you've maybe already made and let go of them so that you can take hold of what God's plans for your year are. Because now where I'm at the end of 2019 is, I never thought that I would be in this place back in October of 2018 before, as I'm getting that preparing process for my year. I never would have thought that where I am right now is where I would be. But whenever God is in it, He does things that are more than what we could even imagine. Now, it's important to remember to keep focused. So we have determined that we are giving God free reign on all of our plans, and we are expecting the unexpected with Him, but also we have to keep our focus. We have to keep our eyes on Him. And that's the reason why I love choosing one word for the year, because it can really be all-encompassing of what your year looks like, even though you have different plans and different dreams that you want to accomplish in that year. That's why I really recommend choosing one word for the year and then focusing on that. And remember to pray about what your word is going to be. This is really beneficial whenever you are setting goals, because your goals can be super spread out, and it can be hard to kind of keep your focus all over the place if you have so many goals that just feel like they're all over. But whenever you have one word, and that word is what defines your year, you will see that all of your other goals, all the other things that you wanted to accomplish, there is a way that they fit into that one word for your year. So let me give you an example of this. A couple of years ago, my word for the year was faithful. And I found that what that meant for me was to be faithful in building my marriage. So spending time with my husband, that is the year that we really started having weekly date nights, and it became a really kind of a solidified time for us. I was also faithful to teach my children God's word. So we started once a week memorizing a verse, and that's something that we still continue doing. I was very faithful in that. In that year, I also started the Graceful Life podcast, and I have been very faithful with that throughout the years since then. But also, I was faithful to find out some physical ailments that I was really struggling with, and all of those things, from my marriage to my kids to my health to the podcast, all of those different things, I was able to align them under that one word, that faithful. So the entire year I was focused on being faithful. I was focused on keeping my eyes on Jesus and staying the course and being consistent. And those are things that I developed in that year that have continued on year after year for me. In the Thriving Mom Club, I really teach about the importance of focusing on one thing at a time. And I talk to the ladies in there all about how if you want to be more productive, if you want to have better time management, it starts with being really focused on one thing at a time. And having this one word really makes a huge difference, because you can line everything up and stay focused on one thing. You can really stay the course and end up seeing better results. Now, normally I share what my words are every year, and I want you to know that it's okay if you want to keep it private. I have been praying about my 2020 word, and it is a word that honestly I want to keep personal. It's something that I feel like the Lord has just for me. And so even though a lot of what I do is out there and I share a lot of what I'm doing, it's a word that I really just want to keep in my heart and see what God is going to do with this one word for my 2020 year. So I want you to know that if you want to share your 2020 word, it is amazing. It's great to do that because it gives you some accountability, kind of helps your confidence a little bit. But if you feel like your word is something that's just between you and God, something that He's working on your heart, maybe it's something that you don't want to share until maybe after the year is over, that is something that I think more power to you. If you want to do that, if you want to keep it private, or if you want to share it, either way, it's really important to pick a word. I feel like just because you want to have some direction for your life, you want to have intention in your living, and whenever you do that, whenever you pray and ask the Lord, trust me, I've never had a year when I've chosen a word that at the end of the year I thought, wow, that was completely off. Every year God has shown up in my life, and whenever I've chosen a word, I can sit back at the end of the year, just like this year. Uncomfortable was a word that I would not have chosen for myself. Whenever I was praying about it, I was driving and I really didn't have a word, and right away that word God put that word in my heart, and I was out looking for verses that had uncomfortable, that talked about being uncomfortable. And the verse that came to my mind was Isaiah 61 in that chapter, and it says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you go through the fire, it will not consume you. And that word when really made sense to me, because I thought, okay, it's not if I go through the waters, it's not if I go through the fire, but it's when I do. I don't have to be afraid of being uncomfortable because I know who's with me. I pray 1 year from now that you're at the end of your year and you realize that God has spoken to you and He has changed your life in the year 2020, and you can begin to see how He's working and how you're moving forward in your goals whenever you're right in line with God's will for your life. So I would love to teach you more about this in the Thriving Mom Club. I will leave a link for you if you want to check it out. If you are not already a part of it, I really encourage you to do so. It's a monthly club for women who really want to grow in their relationship with the Lord. There's monthly Bible studies, but there's also videos and audios that are just like this so that you can grow in your faith, grow in your motherhood and in your marriage, all of that great stuff. So if you really want to have more work like this, where you're just crushing it in your productivity and you're learning about finances and all that great stuff, make sure to check it out. If you are already in the Thriving Mom Club, I just want to say a special thank you. Thank you for being part of this community. I love spending that time with you guys, and I hope that you have enjoyed this episode, and I will talk to you guys next time.